Hey everybody, welcome to Fantasy R&R. This is your host Ryan, and this is NFL Shit Show 2022.
This is Fantasy with Rob and Ryan, Fantasy R&R.
It's all over the fucking news right now, this Damar Hamlin injury. I don't even know if you call it an injury or a medical event. Very sad thing. Guy went into cardiac arrest after a routine play where T. Higgins kind of shouldered him as Hamlin was going in for the tackle. Nobody's fault there. Guy had to be resuscitated twice. It's been all over the news. We saw crying on ESPN and all this stuff. Everybody's crying on the field. Eventually, they decide to postpone the game indefinitely, and now the NFL is thinking about canceling it. Now, listen, I'm seeing a couple of sides of this argument. We've seen Skip Bayless get torn apart. He usually does. That's not surprising. But then there's Shannon Sharpe on the other side going purely off of emotion, especially because of his past as an actual NFL player. I got to say, though, a lot of the hypocrisy I've seen is coming from the side of people who say this is bigger than the game, cancel the game, who cares, it's just the NFL. Well, there's a lot of people involved right now, all right? There's people that you're not thinking about. You're worried about a rich athlete who has access to medical care, has family and friends surrounding him alive in a hospital. You're not worried about anybody else that may have gotten into an accident on the drive home because they had to leave early and fate struck them. People who lost their money in Vegas, people who lost their money and their ticket going to that game. All of the other players that don't get to continue their statistical run for their contract incentives, and this is bigger than money too. This is the issue I'm having. What are we going to do? Cancel the Jaguars game? Cancel the Ravens game? We're going to cancel all of football? Why just this game? Why do you not resume it at some point? To have this season mean something, you have to resume the game at some point. It has to be retrograde, retroactive, whatever. But to just cancel the game isn't going to solve anything for a lot of people. And ESPN and Yahoo Fantasy are doing a terrible job of navigating this right now. They don't seem to understand the implications that this has on fantasy as well as the NFL. And a lot of the people I have talked to so far about this, they're not smart enough to understand that this affects more than just everybody's fantasy league. What you're talking about is that the 2022 NFL playoffs will be meaningless because this game was not played. Anything can happen in a football game, as we just saw, and those things that do happen change the course of history going forward. The 2022, 2023, whatever you want to call it, Super Bowl will be meaningless. 2023 draft order will be meaningless. There's more going on here than just this game is bigger than the NFL. I actually had somebody in one of my leagues get very offended that the majority of us were suggesting this game needs to be played at some point, and this is a media ploy. He responded with, "Are you serious right now? A guy almost died on the field." Well, let me bring something up real quick. This guy that said that, I'm in a Yahoo league with him where he is set to win $360 because this game will be canceled. And after a couple of back and forth, trying to be logical arguments, I had to call him out in front of everyone in this league and say, if that's really the way you feel, if you think we're heartless and insensitive and you're the one that has Damar Hamlin's back, you can take that $360 and you can donate it to his family and medical cause or his GoFundMe, which is a great GoFundMe that's been open since before this injury actually happened. He refuses to do that. In his mind, he literally, I quote, said, "Why? I won." So he's happy to make $360 off of the back of Hamlin's injury, but he thinks that we're heartless for saying that we cannot make a decision on this league until the NFL plays this game, which we think they should play this game eventually. I'm not saying you throw Damar Hamlin back on the field 2 weeks out from cardiac arrest. The guy may never play again. Give the player some time, but you got to make up the game at some point. One of the other things that I'll bring up here about this situation is that no one has a solution because they're just going with whatever benefits the most, per what I just said about this guy in the league. He had Joe Burrow going in that league, and the other guy was already done. But he's only up by 5 points. So let's say Joe Burrow goes in there, throws 3 picks in a repeated game, gets injured himself or benched, which probably isn't going to happen, but he's left with -6 on the day. You lose that league, buddy. And I had Josh Allen going up against Evan McPherson, only about 9 points apart. Let's say the same thing that happened to Damar Hamlin happens to Josh Allen, God forbid. He falls on the field. Let's say it's the first play. puts up absolutely no stats, and then Cincy's kicker puts through 3 field goals and an extra point. I lose that matchup. This matters. For ESPN and Yahoo to suggest that we just wipe the Week 17 stats or they're going to be finalized as is if the NFL cancels this game, it's asinine. I've come up with a solution for you guys to make sure that you can complete your fantasy football season without the craziness of the media being involved, without the emotion of Twitter bots and all that stuff. This is what I'm going to propose to you. You have some options here, obviously. These are the less than ideal options. You can split the winnings between your 2 finalist teams and crown both of them co-champion. I don't think anybody wants that. You can abide by ESPN and Yahoo's idea, but that's going to screw people over. In my league, one of the teams has 4 Bengals. How in the world am I going to say, hey, tough luck, you're going to lose your entire fantasy football season and the money you put into it, you're going to lose because of a freak accident on the field? That's not right. All respect to Hamlin's family. We wish him the best, but I'm not going to go around and condone screwing over millions of other people involved in this because of that one thing that they had no control over. Your other option here is to maybe set up a DFS, do a one-on-one sudden death. That's also not ideal because you may not be playing with the guys on your roster if you're doing a $50,000 salary cap. What I would propose is you can wipe the stats of the Bengals and Bills players this week. Record all the other points as normal. Next week, you record as normal. Then give Bengals players one more week, week 19 when the playoffs start, and the Bills, if the Bills are the number 1 seed, just wait till their first game, and then you record their stats. So it could be as late as week 20 that you put this together, but that's one way to do it. You can manually record those points and get 2 weeks out of each player on your full roster as it was intended in most championships in ESPN. We do a 2-week championship. It's cumulative. So I'm going to be racking up the points minus the Bengals and minus the Bills. You know, one of our champions has championship finalists has 4 Bengals. The other team has Stephon Diggs, so their points are going to get wiped this week. We're going to record everything else as normal. We're going to record next week as normal, and then the first game that those Bengals and Stephon Diggs gets to play, we will record those points, add them to the total, and crown a champion that way. That's how I'm going to do it, and that's the way I honestly think it should be done. ESPN and Yahoo should have come up with this by themselves. I really don't care anybody else's feelings on whether or not I think the game should be played. We had multiple people in our league think that the game needs to be played at some point. If you're going to call us heartless, if you're going to call us insensitive, then you can take your winnings and you can donate them to Hamlin's family. Put your money where your mouth is. But right now what I'm seeing is a lot of virtue signaling and obviously the hypocrisy of telling somebody that a guy nearly died on the field, this is bigger than football, but then you're going to go and turn around and use that opportunity to profit $310. You're a scumbag. This is probably the angriest I've ever been on Fantasy R&R. I know that we don't get a lot of traffic. I'm not worried about pissing anybody off. I'm not worried about my name going out on the internet as Fantasy R&R as a bunch of assholes. Go for it, because right now I'm right, you're wrong. That's the way it's going to be. Crown your champions. Do the right thing. When my family members die, life goes on. When someone gets knocked out at the beginning of an MMA or UFC event and they have to go to the hospital with brain swelling, the rest of the fight goes on. Life goes on for everybody else. It's a sad situation and we feel for them, but life goes on. Nobody stops these games. When guys get paralyzed back in the day, we've seen NCAA players die on the field in practice and then they play the game the next week anyway. The guy in question I've been talking about, he came up with this ridiculous analogy about COVID. Well, this is what they did during COVID. They just, in basketball, they just said, oh, it is what it is. We stopped the scoring, stopped season. Yeah, that's a dumb way to do it. Not only was COVID handled badly, but so was the way that Yahoo and ESPN Fantasy Sports decided to handle those situations. They don't care about you. Yahoo doesn't want to refund you. You want to know why? They don't want to cancel leagues. They got your $1 entry fee. They got millions of people who play fantasy football. There's millions of dollars in those entry fees that they make you pay, and they don't want to give it back to you. That's why. This is all about money. It's all about money for that guy in my league. They're the scumbags, not me, for saying this game should be played. All right? It's a sad situation. And again, I'm sympathetic, but when you sign up to take millions of dollars in a contract and you know that you could get hurt doing something, that's the risk you take. We're not even paying people in the military enough money to go and get shot, but that's the risk they take. Do you understand what I'm saying right now? The life has to go on for everybody else, and that's what's going on right now. It's not about Damar Hamlin. It's not about the fantasy money. It's about the rest of the world can't stop for one person who is still in a hospital right now. This is not quote-unquote bigger than football, because if it was, we wouldn't see that guy that I'm talking about right now trying to profit off of this horrible event. Take my solution, do what I said about, scoring up Bengals and the Bills for one extra game. I think that's the best way to handle this right now, and that's the way I intend on handling it for my personal ESPN league, the one that matters the most to us. This is Rob's first time in the playoffs and now in the championship in the same year, and this happens. I'm not going to take that away from him because of a freak accident. There's a lot of tragedies in both of our lives and our families' lives, and we don't stop. We keep going forward. That's what you do as a human when you have resilience. So, to all you people out there, one last time, if you're going to call somebody heartless or insensitive for saying this game needs to be played at some point, I want you to put your money where your mouth is. You donate that money that you're about to win because of this event. That's what I have to say about it. You can come back next week or start talking about the second season and playoff fantasy football. Good luck to you guys.